Grand Rising, everyone. Peace and love, family. I am back for another morning show. Welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone. I am so happy you guys have decided to join me again this morning. We are going to be continuing our book series. Yes, we are on part 3 of The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. We are on part 3 of the book, which is chapter 4 that we're going to be starting with this morning. It's early, y'all. It's early, y'all. Got y'all coffee? I don't have any coffee this morning, you guys. I am drinking tea. I am drinking tea this morning, and it's early, y'all. I've been up probably a couple of hours now. So let me get myself prepared, get the book and everything all open and ready, and my water and my tea, and do my little morning meditation. I have to do that before I do anything, and take care of little morning issues. Wash your face, brush your teeth. Yes, so we are back, and we're going to get started here. I was up back and forth last night in these YouTube streets. They had a lot going on over here in our sector that they call the beef sector. Videos were popping off everywhere, honey, and I was running in these streets trying to catch everyone. I did miss some of the content creators' videos, but I will be catching up on those today. And hopefully some of you guys will come over and visit me on my channel and see what's happening in the spiritual world. Yes, so without further ado, as they say, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, welcome. Grand Rising. Make sure you guys give me some likes when you come into the room. Um, Subscribe to my channel if you have not yet subscribed, and hit the notification bell twice. That way, whenever I go live or whatever I'm doing over here, you guys will be here for it, okay? All right, we are going to get started with our book. We're continuing The Game of Life and How to Play It. This book was written in 1925 by an author whose name was Florence Scovel Shinn. She is no longer with us, and but she left us some good nuggets about life and spirituality and different laws of nature. She has written many books, and we will continue with another one of her books on next month in October. Okay, The Game of Life and How to Play It, Chapter 4. Chapter 4's title is The Law of Non-Resistance. Nothing on earth can resist an absolutely non-resistant person. The Chinese say that water is the most powerful element because it is perfectly non-resistant. It can wear away a rock and sweep all before it. Jesus Christ said, "Resist not evil," for he knew in reality there is no evil. Therefore, nothing to resist. Evil has come of man's vain imagination or a belief in two powers, good and evil. There is an old legend that Adam and Eve ate off Maya, the tree of illusion, and saw two powers instead of one power, God. Therefore, evil is a false law man has made for himself. Though psychoma or soul sleep let's read that again. Therefore, evil is a false law man has made for himself through psychoma or soul sleep. Soul sleep means that man's soul has been hypnotized by the race belief of sin, sickness, and death, etc., which is carnal or mortal thoughts, and his affairs have outpictured his illusions. We have read in the preceding chapter that man's soul is his subconscious mind, and whatever he feels deeply, good or bad, is outpictured by that faithful servant. His body and affairs show forth what he has been picturing. The sick man has pictured sickness, the poor man poverty, the rich man wealth. People often say, why does a little child attract illness when it is too young even to know what it means? I answer that children are sensitive and receptive to the thoughts of others about them and often outpicture the fears of their parents. I heard a metaphysician once say, if you do not run your subconscious mind yourself, someone else will run it for you. Mothers often unconsciously attract illness and disaster to their children by continually holding them in thoughts of fear and watching for symptoms. For example, a friend asked a woman if her little girl had had measles. She replied promptly, not yet. This implied that she was expecting the illness and therefore preparing the way for what she did not want for herself and child. However, the man who is centered and established in right thinking, the man who sends out only goodwill to his fellow man and who is without fear, cannot be touched or influenced by the negative thoughts of others. In fact, he could then receive only good thoughts, as he himself sends forth only good thoughts. Resistance is hell, for it places man in a state of torment. A metaphysician once gave me a wonderful recipe for taking every trick in the game of life. It is the it is the acme of non-resistance. He gave it in this way. At one time in my life, I baptized children, and of course, they had many names. Now, I no longer baptize children, but I baptize events. But I give every event the same name. If I have a failure, I baptize its success in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. In this, we see the great law of transmutation founded on non resistance. Through his spoken word, every failure was transmuted into success. For example, a woman who required money and who knew the spiritual law of opulence was thrown continually in a business way with a man who made her feel very poor. He talked lack and limitation, and she commenced to catch his poverty thoughts. So she disliked him and blamed him for her failure. She knew in order to demonstrate her supply, she must first feel that she had received. A feeling of opulence must precede its manifestation. It dawned upon her one day that she was resisting the situation and seeing two powers instead of one. So she blessed the man and baptized the situation success, she affirmed. As there is only one power, God, this man is here for my good and my prosperity, just what he did not seem to be there for. Soon after that, she met through this man a woman who gave her for service rendered several $1,000s, and the man moved to a distant city and faded harmoniously from her life. Make the statement. Every man is a golden link in the chain of my good. For all men are God in manifestation, awaiting the opportunity given by man himself to serve the divine plan of his life. Bless your enemy, and you rob him of his ammunition. His arrows will be transmuted into blessings. This law is true of nations as well as individuals. Bless a nation, send love and goodwill to every inhabitant, and it is robbed of its power to harm. Man can only get the right idea of non resistance through spiritual understanding. My students have often said, I don't want to be a doormat. I reply, when you use non resistance with wisdom, no one will ever be able to walk over you. Another example, one day I was impatiently awaiting an important telephone call. I resisted every call that came in and made no outgoing calls myself, reasoning that it might interfere with the one I was awaiting. Instead of saying divine ideas never conflict, the call will come at the right time, leaving it to the infinite intelligence to arrange, I commenced to manage things myself. I made the battle mine, not God's, and remained tensed and anxious. The bell did not ring for about an hour, and I glanced at the phone and I found the receiver had been off that length of time, and the phone was disconnected. My anxiety, fear, and belief in interference had brought on a total eclipse of the telephone. Realizing what I had done, I commenced blessing the situation at once. I baptized its success and affirmed I could not lose any call that belonged to me by divine right. I am under grace and not under law. A friend rushed out to the nearest telephone to notify the company to reconnect. She entered a crowded grocery, but the proprietor left his customers and attended to the call himself. My phone was connected at once. And 2 minutes later, I received a very important call. About an hour afterward, the one I had been awaiting. One ships come in over a calm sea. So as long as man resists a situation, he will have it with himself. If he runs away from it, it will run after him. For example, I repeated this to a woman one day, and she replied, how true that is. I was unhappy at home. I disliked my mother, who was critical and domineering. So I ran away and was married. But I married my mother, for my husband was exactly like my mother. And I had the same situation to face again. Agree with thine adversary quickly. That means agree that the adverse situation is good, but undisturbed by it, and it falls away of its own weight. None of these things move me. It is a wonderful affirmation. The inharmonious situation comes from some inharmony within man himself. When there is in him no emotional response to an inharmonious situation, it fades away forever from his pathway. Excuse me while I take a drink of water. When there is in him no emotional response to an inharmonious situation, it fades away forever from his pathway. So we see man's work in ever is ever with himself. People have said to me, give treatments to change my husband or my brother? I replied, no, I would give treatments to change you. When you change, your husband and your brother will change. One of my students was in the habit of lying. I told her it was a failure method if she had lied. She would be lied to. She replied, I don't care. I can't possibly get along without lying. One day she was speaking on the phone to a man with whom she was very much in love. She turned to me and said, I don't trust him. I know he's lying to me. I replied, well, you lie yourself. So someone has to lie to you, and you will be sure it will be just the person you want the truth from. Sometime after that, I saw her and she said, I'm cured of lying. I questioned, what cured you? She replied, I have been living with a woman who lied worse than I did. One is often cured of his faults by seeing them in others. Life is a mirror, and we find only ourselves reflected in our associates. Living in the past is a failure method and a violation of spiritual law. Jesus Christ said, behold, now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation. Lot's wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. The robbers of time are the past and the future. Man should bless the past and forget it if it keeps him in bondage, and bless the future, knowing it has in store for him endless joys, and live live fully in the now. For example, a woman came to me complaining that she had no money with which to buy Christmas gifts. She said, last year was so different. I had plenty of money and I gave lovely presents, and this year I have scarcely a cent. I replied, you would never demonstrate money while you are pathetic and live in the past. Live fully in the now and get ready to give Christmas presents. Dig your ditches and the money will come, she exclaimed. I know what to do. I will buy some tinsel twine, Christmas seals, and wrapping paper. I replied, do that, and the presents will come and stick themselves to the Christmas seals. This too was showing financial fearlessness and faith in God. As the reasoning mind said, keep every cent you have, as you are not sure you will get any more. She bought the seals, paper, and twine, and a few days before Christmas received a gift of several $100s. Buying the seals and twine had impressed the subconscious with expectancy and opened the way for the manifestation of the money. She purchased all the presents in plenty of time. Man must live suspended in the moment. Look well, therefore, to this day. Such is the salutation of the dawn. He must be spiritually alert, ever awaiting his leads, taking advantage of every opportunity. One day I said continually, silently, Infinite Spirit, don't let me miss a trick. And something very important was told to me that evening. It is most necessary to begin the day with right words. Make an affirmation immediately upon waking. For example, thy will be done this day. Today is the day of completion. I give thanks for the perfect day. Miracles shall follow. Miracle and wonders shall never cease. Make this a habit, and one will see wonders and miracles come into his life. One morning, I picked up a book and read, look with wonder at that which is before you. It seemed to be my message for the day. So I repeated it again and again. Look with wonder at that which is before you. At about noon, a large sum of money was given to me which I had been desiring for a certain purpose. In the following chapter, I will give affirmations that I have found most effective. However, one should never use an affirmation unless it is absolutely satisfying and convincing to his own subconscious. And often an affirmative is changed to suit different people. For example, the following has brought success to many. I have a wonderful work in a wonderful way. I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. I gave the first two lines to one of my students, and she added the last two lines. It made a most powerful statement, as there should always be perfect payment for perfect service, and a rhyme sinks easily into the subconscious. She went about singing it aloud and soon did receive wonderful work in a wonderful way and gave wonderful service for a wonderful day, for wonderful pay. Another student, a businessman, took it and changed the words to work to business. To change the word work to business. He replied, I have a wonderful business in a wonderful way, and I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. That afternoon, he made a $41,000 deal, though there had been no activity in his affairs for months. Every affirmation must be carefully worded and completely cover the ground. For example, I knew a woman who was in a great need and made a demand for work. She received a great deal of work but was never paid anything. She now knows to add wonderful service for wonderful pay. It is man's divine right to have plenty, more than enough. His barns should be filled and his cup should flow over. This is God's idea for man. And when man breaks down the barriers of lack in his own subconsciousness, the golden age will be his and every righteous desire of his heart fulfilled. That is the end of chapter 4. We are going to continue reading chapter 5. Chapter five's title is The Law of Karma and the Law of Forgiveness. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with that. Man receives only that which he gives. The game of life is a game of boomerangs. Man's thoughts, deeds, and words return to him sooner or later with astounding accuracy. This is the law of karma, which is Sanskrit for comeback. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For example, a friend told me this story of herself, illustrating the law. She said, I make all my karma on my aunt. Whatever I say to her, someone says to me. I am often irritable at home, and one day said to my aunt who was talking to me during dinner, no more talk. I wish to eat in peace. The following day, I was lunching with a woman with whom I wished to make a great impression. I was talking animatedly, animally when she said, no more talk. I wish to eat in peace. My friend is high in consciousness. So her karma returned much more quickly than to the one on the mental plane. The more man knows, the more he is responsible for. And a person with a knowledge of spiritual law, which he does not practice, suffers greatly in consequence. The fear of the Lord, law, is the beginning of wisdom. If we read the word Lord, law, it will make many passages in the Bible much clearer. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord, law. It is the law which takes vengeance, not God. God sees man perfect, created in his own image, imagination, and given power and dominion. This is the perfect idea of man, registered in divine mind, awaiting man's recognition. For man can only be what he sees himself to be, and only attain what he sees himself attaining. Nothing ever happens without an onlooker. It is an ancient saying. Man sees first his failure or success, his joy or his sorrow, before it swings into visibility from the scene set in his own imagination. We have observed this in the mother picturing disease for her child, or a woman seeing success for her husband. Jesus Christ said, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." So we see freedom from all unhappy conditions comes through knowledge, a knowledge of spiritual law. Obedience precedes authority, and the law obeys man when he obeys the law. The law is electricity. The law of electricity must be obeyed before it becomes man's servant. When handled ignorantly, it becomes man's deadly foe. So with the law of mind. For example, a woman with a strong personal will wished she owned a house which belonged to an acquaintance, and she often made mental pictures of herself living in the house. In the course of time, the man died, and she moved into the house. Several years afterwards, coming to the knowledge of spiritual law, she said to me, "Do you think I had anything to do with that man's death?" I replied, "Yes. Your desire was so strong, everything made way for it, but you paid your karmic debt. Your husband, whom you loved devotedly, died soon after, and the house was a white elephant on your hands for years." The original owner, however, could not have been affected by her thoughts had he been positive in the truth, nor her husband, but they were both under karmic law. The woman should have said, feeling the great desire for the house, "Infinite intelligence, give me the right house, equally as charming as this, the house which is mine by divine right." The divine selection would have given perfect satisfaction and brought good to all. The divine pattern is the only safe pattern to work by. Divine, Desire is a tremendous force and must be directed in the right channels or chaos ensues. In demonstrating the most important step is the first step to ask aright. Man should always demand only that which is his by divine right. To go back to the illustration, had the woman taken this attitude, "If this house I desire is mine, I cannot lose it. If it is not, give me its equivalent," the man might have decided to move out harmlessly had it been the divine selection for her, or another house would have been substituted. Anything forced into manifestation through personal will is always ill got and has ever bad success. Shay, I truly believe that. Okay, man is admonished. My will be done, not thine. And the curious thing is, man always gets just what he desires when he does relinquish personal will, thereby enabling infinite intelligence to work through him. Stand ye still and see the salvation of the Lord law. For example, a woman came to me in great distress. Her daughter had determined to take a very hazardous trip, and the mother was filled with fear. She said she had used every argument, had pointed out the dangers to be encountered, and forbidden her to go. But the daughter became more and more rebellious and determined. I said to the mother, "You are forcing your personal will upon your daughter, which you have no right to do. And your fear of the trip is only attracting it, for man attracts what he fears," I added. "Let go and take your mental hands off. Put it in God's hand and use this statement. I put this situation in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. If this trip is the divine plan, I bless it and no longer resist. But if it is not divinely planned, I give thanks that it is now dissolved and dissipated." A day or two after that, her daughter said to her, "Mother, I have given up the trip," and the situation returned to its native nothingness. It is learning to stand still, which seems so difficult to man. I will deal more fully with this law in the next chapter on non-resistance. I will give another example of sowing and reaping, which came in the most curious way. A woman came to me saying she had received a counterfeit $20 bill given to her at the bank. She was much disturbed, for she said, "The people at the bank will never acknowledge their mistake." I replied, "Let us analyze the situation and find out why you attracted it." She thought a few moments and exclaimed, "I know it. I sent a friend a lot of stage money just for a joke." Hmm. So the law had sent her some stage money, for it doesn't know anything about jokes. I said, "Now we will call on the law of forgiveness and neutralize the situation." Christianity is founded upon the law of forgiveness. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the karmic law, and the Christ within each man is his redeemer and salvation from all inharmonious conditions. So I said, "Infinite Spirit, we call on the law of forgiveness and give thanks that she is under grace and not under law and cannot lose this $20, which is hers by divine right." Now I said, "Go back to the bank and tell them fearlessly that it was given to you by their mistake." She obeyed, and to her surprise, they apologized and gave her another bill, treating her most courteously. So, knowledge of the law gives man power to rub out his mistakes. Man cannot force the external to be what he is not. If he desires riches, he must be rich first in subconsciousness. For example, a woman came to me asking treatment for prosperity. She did not take much interest in her household affairs, and her home was in great disorder. I said to her, "If you wish to be rich, you must be orderly. All men with great wealth are orderly, and order is heaven's first law." I added, "You will never become rich with a burnt match in the, the pin cushion." Okay, let's read that again. I added, "You will never become rich with a burnt match in the pin cushion." She had a good sense of humor and commenced immediately, putting her house in order. She rearranged furniture, straightened out the bureau drawers, cleaned the rugs, and soon made a big financial demonstration, a gift from a relative. The woman herself became made over and keeps herself keyed up financially by being ever watchful of the external and expecting prosperity, knowing God is her supply. Many people are in ignorance of the fact that gifts and things are investments and that hoarding and saving invariable lead to loss. There is that scattereth and yet increases, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. For example, I knew a man who wanted to buy a fur-lined overcoat. He and his wife went to various shops, but there was none he wanted. He said they were all too cheap looking. At last he was shown one. The salesman said was valued at $1,000 as it was late in the season. His financial possessions amounted to about $700. The reasoning mind would have said you can't afford to spend nearly all you have on a coat, but he was very intuitive and never reasoned. He turned to his wife and said, "If I get this coat, I'll make a ton of money." So his wife consented weakly. About a month later, he received a $10,000. Excuse me, guys, put this back on the screen. Okay. All right, let's continue. About a month later, he received a $10,000 commission. The coat made him feel so rich it linked him with success and prosperity. Without the coat, he could not have received the commission. It was an investment paying large dividends. If man ignores these leadings to spend or to give, the same amount of money will go in an uninteresting or unhappy way. For example, a woman told me on Thanksgiving Day she informed her family that they could not afford a Thanksgiving dinner. She had the money but decided to save it. A few days later, someone entered her room and took from the bureau drawer the exact money the dinner would have cost. The law always stands back of the man who spends fiercely with wisdom. For example, one of my students was shopping with her little nephew. The child clamored for a toy which she told him she could not afford to buy. She realized sadly that she was seeking lack and not recognizing God as her supply. So she bought the toy and on her way home picked up in the street the exact amount of money she had paid for it. Man's supply is inexhaustible and unfailing when fully trusted, but faith or trust must precede the demonstration. According to your faith, be it unto you. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. For faith holds the vision steady, and the adverse pictures are dissolved and dissipated. And in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Jesus Christ brought the good news, the gospel, that there was a higher law than the law of karma, and that law transcends the law of karma. It is the law of grace or forgiveness. It is the law which frees man from the law of cause and effect and the law of consequence, under grace and not under law. We are told that on this plane, man reaps where he has not sown. The gifts of God are simply poured out upon him. All that the kingdom affords is his. This continued state of bliss awaits man who has overcome the race or world thought. In the world thought there is tribulation. But Jesus Christ said, "Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." The world thought is that of sin, sickness, and death. He saw their absolute unreality and said, "Sickness and sorrow shall pass away, and death itself, the last enemy, be overcome." We know now for a scientific stand from excuse me, let me read that again. We know now from a scientific standpoint that death could be overcome by stamping the subconscious mind with the conviction of eternal youth and eternal life. The subconscious, being simply power without direction, carries out orders without questioning. Working under the direction of the superconscious, the Christ or God within man, the resurrection of the body would be accomplished. Man would no longer throw off his body in death. It will be transformed into the body electric, sung by Walt Whitman. For Christianity is founded upon the forgiveness of sins and empty tomb. All right, you guys, we are done for this morning. We read 2 chapters. We will continue with chapter 6 on tomorrow morning. Chapter 6 title is Casting the Burden, Impressing the Subconscious. We will continue with that on tomorrow morning about 5 or 6 o'clock. And I hope you guys will be here again to join me. Thanks everyone for stopping by. I really appreciate you. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, hit the notification bell twice after you subscribe, of course, for those of you that have not yet subscribed. Hit that bell twice. That way, whenever I go live or whatever I do over here on my channel, you will be here for it. Okay, go out and make it a great, positive day. I send you love energy. I send you positive energy. I send you prosperity energy. I send you healing energy. I send you power energy. Okay. All right. Go out and make it a great one. Namaste.